Hi there! Welcome to my channel. I'm Kawaii Resin Magic, and today I'm going to show you guys how I make silicone decorated phone cases or Decoden cases. This is just how I do it, so if you do it slightly differently, that's alright. First thing you need is a case and some sort of rough idea on how you will decorate it. Colours, placement, and if there will be any writing. You can grab cheap cases online from Kmart and from lots of dollar stores as well. You then want to get everything out ready so you don't have to spend ages looking for things. Equipment that I'm going to be using are things like stickers, jewels, piping bag, shell tip, tape, toothpicks, scissors, plastic knife, a pen knife, glitter, silicone and oil paints. But really, you could use anything that you want to decorate it with, even old toys. I've kept the white card behind so it's easier to see what I'm doing next. I'm making diagonal, horizontal and vertical cuts on the phone case here so that the silicone grabs and adheres to the case well. Now that that's done, I'm preparing my piping bag ready to use later on. I use tape to keep the bag from splitting and destroying everything that I'm creating. I then use a large cup to hold the piping bag to make it easier to fill the silicone. You ever get a drink from somewhere and realise they've given you 2 cups? Yeah, so I use the clean one for this and when making silicone molds. Now, around this point in the video, I realised that I didn't like the colours that I was using, so I had to scrape all the colours off, and I redesigned the image that I wanted on here, and you can see I've also placed it on the case, so I can see just how far apart everything's going to be placed as well. And I kept all the letters to the side, so that I can easily grab them later on. Now, next you're going to wear gloves and a face mask or you'll be smelling silicone for days and you'll get it stuck on your hands. It comes off of your hands pretty easy, but if you don't want to have it smelling all over you and up your nostrils, I suggest you wear a face mask as the fumes can be toxic, just like when you're working with resin. Next, I am going to be using 100% silicone sealant and put them into my cups. I'm going to use a few colours for this case, so I need a few different cups out when mixing things together. And I'll also need pop sticks to mix with, that way I can just throw them away afterwards. It's very important to get the 100% silicone because it will be a bit flexible when set and it won't crack. If you don't get 100% silicone, it's not going to turn out how you want it. I also get the translucent one because the colours seemed more vibrant when I use it. I used a white one the first time I did a case and it took ages to get the colours right, and I found that you have to use oil paints. Oil paints are the best because they won't seize the silicone as easy as acrylics, and I only add a little bit in at a time. Depending on how much silicone you're going to use on the case will depend how much you put into the cups, but I normally use around 4 to 5 pumps if I'm doing the entire case. But today I think I'll probably use about 3.5 in each, just because I'm using multiple colours and I want to make sure that there's enough made so I don't have to go and remake more later. As you can see, I'm taking the cap off of my oil paints, putting a little bit onto the pop stick and then going to mix it with the silicone. From there I can add a little bit more paint later on if I want to make it a bit more vibrant and not as pastel. I can add white to it if I want. You can even add, once it's all mixed in, you can add glitters later on as well. As you can see in a moment, I'm going to pull up the silicone from the bottom as I'm mixing to make sure that it's all stirred in properly. You want to make sure you get it all mixed in, because otherwise when you're piping it in your bag, you're going to have these random clear bits of silicone coming through. this tutorial, I'm going to be doing something new that I haven't done before, and I'm going to use the silicone that I first made up with a plastic knife, and I'm going to spread it across the case like I would icing on a cake. Now that that's all done, I'm going to repeat the process from earlier, making sure that I have enough silicone for both of my colours. You'll notice as well that just before I started piping, I had a tip that I took off of my silicone. So what I do is I wrap the top of my silicone nozzle in tape to make sure that it doesn't dry out. And what you can do is, if you've got the little bit of plastic that you've cut off of the nozzle left, I put that inside, then tape it to act as a plug. That way you can easily take it on and off without drying out your silicone in the nozzle. Scrape as much of the silicone onto your pop stick as you can and put that inside your piping bag. What I'm doing right now is I'm putting purple on one side and then I'm going to be putting the black on the other so that I can try to get a two-tone gradient when I'm piping it out. Now that you've got all your silicone in your piping bag, you want to grab something that is pretty flat and blunt to scrape the silicone to the top of the piping bag. I use a kind of silk screen squidgy thing, for lack of a better word, because it's nice and hard and it gives me a good grip. You can also buy things that are deliberately scrapers if you'd like, or you could just even use like a bit of wood. Just make sure that it's something that's not going to tear the bag open as you're doing it. And notice I do tend to go pretty slowly. I don't go super fast. I want to make sure that both colours are going to the top and that's not just a bunch of purple coming out. Twist the end of the bag off so you can get a really good grip, and then I tend to do a little bit of a just practice check before I go onto the phone case to see how it's turning out. When you're piping, pipe slow. If you go too fast, you'll probably make a mistake. And now it's time to decorate. You can put anything at all on your phone cases. What I'm doing with some parts that are a little bit bigger is I'm putting an extra blob of silicone underneath to give it that bit of a raise and to make sure it sticks down. So sometimes when you add decorated bits, you might want to add extra silicone because it does dry fairly quickly. Not too quickly, but for some parts that are a little bit bigger, you might want to put extra silicone down just to make sure. From here, I'm going to use the toothpicks to help get my letters on. You can also use tweezers. I find that sometimes putting a toothpick in the little holes of the letters is a little bit easier, and sometimes I can't quite get the tweezers off of the letters if I do use tweezers. Tweezers are also really helpful for other little decorated bits, like little bits of glitter that you might want to add on later. And there we go, we are completely finished with our phone case. What you can also do is, if you have extra silicone, you can pipe it onto some plastic, let it set, and use that as a little decorated charm to put on the side of your phone. That's all for the video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and like the video so that I know if you'd like to see more. Also, check out my Instagram, my Etsy store, Pinterest, Facebook, you know, all those things. I'm sure I'll have them linked down at the bottom of the video somewhere. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.